A very good day to everyone for this second day of the Triple I meeting, Intuition, Imagination, Innovation, organized by the Slovene Center for Suicide Research. This is the 15th edition of this um, amazing, I would say, webinars and conferences when we made them in presence. Now the COVID has made us habitual user of webinars to facilitate cooperation. And as a matter of fact, we had a huge number of countries, people joining this meeting for this year edition. Edition dedicated to a very particular theme in suicide prevention, which is a self-criticism towards suicide prevention with a provocative title. Is suicide prevention stagnating? Are we progressing? Are we making any real step forward towards preventing lives? Well, as a matter of truth, at least based on estimates from the global burden of disease, there is a progress in terms of rates of suicide. In 30 years, we declined from 15.5 100,000 to 9.1 per 100,000 inhabitants. So a very significant declining rate. Curiously, the number of suicide has been increasing, but the world population has been increasing. So the estimates for 2021 are now around 753,000 deaths due to suicide. And the previous estimate was 703,000 estimates for suicide. But apart from these data that are anyway estimates, not real data, estimates, credible estimates with a fantastic methodological maneuvering around the calculation of data, which anyway excludes countries or territories with less than 90,000 people. So we need to be aware also of this subtle difference. But the real problem is to understand what is really effective in suicide prevention, not just to maintaining positions in the area of suicide, but just to continue in a mission that is difficult, because suicide is difficult. Suicide is complex, so the complexity is embedded with the solution of such a difficult problem need to be complex and not an easy recipe of whatsoever type. For this second day, we have the fortune to have with us a person that is particularly familiar and dear to me, which is Dr. Luke Balcombe from Australia. Luke has been one of my doctorate person in Griffith University, and he has matured a particular experience in the health of athletes because he is himself an athlete. And so he has been followed particular matters such as the oxidative process, the stress of athletes, the fatigue, and the depression of athletes and their suicidal behavior, because being a champion and then being forgotten by people must lead to a big dismissal of feelings and sense of pride, etc. So a complexity of reaction even for a champion. But apart from this particular interest, which is a bit autobiographical, if you permit me, Luke, Luke has matured a real and deep interest in digital health. is with us today to speak about the development of virtual affairs, electronic and artificial intelligence impact on suicide prevention and the way we can exploit these fantastic opportunities offered by artificial intelligence. The ball is rolling for you, Luke. That's your turn.
Grazie, Diego. Well, good morning and afternoon to anyone who's in Australia. Thank you for joining us today to explore this research question. Is human artificial intelligence in suicide research and prevention a capable combination? The discussion is informed by cutting-edge research, some of which has been published, along with co-author Diego, in MDPI journal articles such as Informatics and iJERP. We've been showcasing how this synergy is not just a theoretical concept, but a practical approach to one of our most daunting challenges, suicide prevention. As we embark on this journey, let's open our minds to the possibilities that lie at the intersection of human empathy and artificial intelligence, otherwise known as AI. Slide 1, Introduction. Why does the collaboration between AI and human intelligence in suicide prevention matter now more than ever? With mental health crises on the rise globally, the answer lies in our shared commitment to saving lives and enhancing the quality of mental health care. Today, we'll explore how this collaboration can lead to the groundbreaking advancements in suicide prevention, offering hope and tangible solutions to those in need. Join me as we navigate through this promising yet challenging landscape, understanding the stakes and the opportunities ahead. Next slide. The emergence of AI chatbots in mental health. Imagine a world where help is always available, where anyone feeling the despair that often leads to suicide can find an immediate understanding response. AI chatbots, powered by advancements in big data, natural language processing, and machine learning, are bringing us closer to this reality. Technological breakthroughs such as these have made digital mental health chatbots possible. The problem is that technology has outpaced the scientific literature, so it is important to examine their current applications in mental health and suicide prevention. New and ongoing research is required to make AI chatbots even more effective. Real-life examples of chatbots such as Wobot and Wiser in action help to illustrate their potential to change lives for the better. Next slide, please. Human artificial intelligence. This concept is also known as HAI. What sets apart a conversation with AI from one with a human being? Can AI ever truly understand human emotions? This section explores the HAI concept's ambition to infuse AI with human-like empathy and ethical considerations. Through case studies, we'll see how AI developers are incorporating psychological principles to create chatbots that offer not just information, but genuine support. We'll also discuss the ethical implications and the importance of maintaining the human touch in mental health support. Slide 5. mental health accessibility and digital solutions. Digital platforms promise to revolutionize mental health care by breaking down barriers to access. However, this digital revolution is not without its pitfalls. It is therefore important to understand the successes and challenges of digital mental health solutions, focusing on accessibility, affordability, and the reduction of stigma. We can do this through exploring some case studies of successful digital interventions and discuss the ethical considerations that must guide their development and deployment, including privacy and ensuring equitable access. Next slide, please. One such case study is research in suicide vulnerability among men. I investigated the empirical findings on suicide in men, focusing on age and geographical location. I found older men are especially at risk of suicide. The Global Burden of Disease study from 2016 showed Lithuania, Russia, and Kazakhstan featuring prominently in the highest number of deaths by suicide. Why are older men in certain regions more vulnerable to suicide, and how can we address this crisis? This research question is relevant to explore, but hard to answer because of the complex interplay of cultural, economic, and social factors contributing to higher suicide rates among men in specific demographics. Nonetheless, it is important to discuss targeted prevention strategies, including outreach programs and tailored support services. This is where the option of exploring AI comes about. For example, can these tools help to identify and support those at greatest risk? Slide 7. Generative AI in suicide research. Generative AI offers unparalleled potential to analyze vast data sets for insights into suicide risk factors. It's important to explore how this technology is being used in order to identify trends and patterns that human researchers might miss, potentially unlocking new avenues for prevention and intervention. Ethical considerations, including data privacy and the potential for misuse, will also be discussed, alongside real-world examples of GIA's application in suicide research. Next slide, please. Ethical and legal concerns in AI applications. The integration of AI in mental health care raises profound ethical and legal questions. How do we protect patient privacy? How do we ensure AI recommendations are in the patient's best interests? It is necessary to delve into the ethical frameworks being developed to guide AI's use in mental health, including informed consent, bias reduction, and regulatory compliance. Furthermore, there is a need to discuss the balance between innovation and ethical responsibility, drawing on case studies to illustrate these principles in action. Slide 9. Collaborative efforts for HAI solutions. Effective ethical AI solutions in mental health require collaboration across disciplines. While human AI is at a conceptual stage, it is possible to highlight successful partnerships between technologists, mental health professionals, and policymakers in digital mental health care. It is relevant to explore how these collaborations have led to innovative solutions while noting both the challenges and successes of their interdisciplinary work. The importance of involving people with lived experience of mental health issues in the development of AI solutions could help to deliver usable, safe, good quality digital solutions. Slide 10. Education and public awareness. Public education and awareness are crucial for the acceptance and responsible use of AI in mental health. There is a need for strategies for educating both the public and healthcare providers about the potential and limitations of AI. This includes addressing common misconceptions, highlighting the benefits of AI-assisted care, and fostering an informed dialogue between stakeholders about the future of mental health care. Slide 11. Challenges and future directions. As we look to the future, we face significant challenges in fully integrating AI into suicide prevention and mental health care. The major hurdles include ethical, legal, and technological challenges, so innovative approaches need to be developed to overcome them. While the exciting potential of emerging technologies can be hyped up, we must also understand the importance of continued research and development, noting that younger generations may require assistive technologies to conduct up-to-date research. Overall, GAI, generative AI, is capable to process vast data sets, thereby identifying risk factors and targeted intervention opportunities with unprecedented precision. However, the application of generative AI in this sensitive domain is fraught with concerns regarding privacy, consent, and the potential for data misuse. Despite these challenges, through rigorous regulation, transparent ethical guidelines, and extensive testing, some of these barriers to the effective use of GAI in suicide research and prevention can be surmounted. However, there is a need for a robust framework that incorporates data protection laws, ethical AI use standards, and continuous oversight. Therefore, I have proposed the concept of human artificial intelligence, a model which could pave the way for responsible generative AI deployment in the suicide research and prevention domain. And lastly, conclusion. Our journey today underscores the immense potential of human and AI collaboration in transforming suicide prevention and mental health care. As we move forward, time will tell if suicide research and prevention is an area where people and approaches commit to a common goal, bearing in mind the need for ongoing exploration, innovation, and collaboration. Human artificial intelligence is a way forward in navigating the complexities of integrating AI into mental health care, striving for a future where technology and human insight combine to offer more effective, accessible, and compassionate care. Thank you for your attention and for your interest in how AI may help us to always look on the bright side of life, even when lonely or isolated.
Look, you have been very short. You have plenty of time to expand your speech, but you took only 20 minutes of the time of listener. Anyway, you raise a number of questions. If I may, and profiting for the time that is available to us, how can you see for the immediacy the use of artificial intelligence in suicide prevention? what is your forecasting or your reading?
Well, my reading at the moment is in the use of the treatment chatbots, such as Ybot. So that's effective through research. It's been proven effective for anxiety and depression. So some of the more common disorders, it's been used already, these AI chatbots. However, in saying that's effective for the common disorders and treating them, it's more perhaps in association with other tools, such as guided or self-guided cognitive behavior therapies available online. So, for example, if we look in Australian examples, like there are some websites such as MindSpot, or there's plenty of websites or apps available on the Head to Health platform, which is an Australian government vetted platform, which show that there's, I guess you could say, a gamut of options for the public to choose specific to their needs. So perhaps the hardest part is how to be advised on accessing treatment rather than just the screening. So that's been the problem in Australia, is catching up with the existing system of intake and assessment. So when I talked with the current service provider, which is Niami National in Australia, they said currently it's a bit outdated, that they have these digital mental health services available. However, to access them, you must first go to a GP or a community center in person, or possibly you can see your GP via telehealth. However, there isn't like a telehealth program provided through the national service, so it's a bit convoluted, and they could possibly lose a lot of interest from the screening through to the treatment phase, based on this antiquated system of having to see your GP first, to have a referral to get inside of the digital system. However, they are hoping on, being able to develop a digital intake and assessment system. It hasn't eventuated, so it's the same old story that I have been reporting on since our first paper in 2020, which was about these digital mental health solutions emerging during the COVID pandemic and during the lockdown phases. And that is, like, there are a lot of technological solutions. However, which ones are usable, which ones are safe, and which ones are of good quality, and how do we increase accessibility and engagement with targeted populations? So there's a lot of tying in, with different parts of the system, it's a bit clunky in how it works on the ground or in actuality for people. So unless they have been recommended by their GP or through a community center or done some of their own research about these platforms, like in their local area, it could be possibly cumbersome or even difficult for some people to navigate, what is a good fit for them.
Okay, I don't want to abuse of my role, but I could have more questions about that. There are a few questions for you in the question and answer section. For example, Lyuba Cheben from Altruism Moldova says, I'm curious if there is an artificial intelligence used in suicide prevention chats. according to our use of chat GPT in our suicide prevention chat, the level of empathy is not at the level that we need. The answers generated are not able to go in depth of the client's situation and generates advice, solution as for business rather than active listening. Any other experience in this particular field? Thank you.
So yeah, to answer that one for Luba, it's quite simple answer, and that is that these chat GPTs and the other GPT examples have not yet been proven to be useful tools. And in fact, for suicide prevention, there was one case in Belgium where the widow blamed her husband's suicide on some of the answers that were received from something like this, a GAI type tool that he was consulting about his suicidality. And as you said there in your question, that level of empathy, yeah, it perhaps was a part of like the answer that yes, it's not able to develop a human-like empathy with the user, and I say user because it's not a patient; it's a digital user. Okay, and these are not yet evidenced through studies. Therefore, we cannot use the example from in a clinical sense. Just reading more into your question, yeah, about whether it can be advice. That's where I would conclude this answer. Is yes, it can be useful for research purposes. However, it should be used not by the novice to gain an answer. It should be used by experienced researchers or experts, perhaps to help lubricate the mind a bit. So to think outside of the box, or possibly to interrogate like some of the research that they've done. And the reason that I say that is because we've become so accustomed to using technology that some of the skills that we have as researchers are kind of becoming congruent with Googling something, which is like another version of that, except it generates an answer to your question on a platform or the app. And from what I've observed, there is a difference in the versions of GPT. So there's more accuracy and safety in the latest version, which is version 4. And some of the nuances have been addressed. However, if you look at the media from OpenAI's boss for ChatGPT, Sam Altman, he has been critical about the capacity of these tools, especially in situations such as this, and suicide prevention. There's definitely a lot of regulatory issues which has been addressed, through congressional hearings in the US. For example, last year, it was all over the media about whether ChatGPT should be used even in a business sense. But for science and for our topic in suicide prevention, it would seem that it should only be used as a consultative tools by people whom know correct empirical research methods and are using those methods first of all in their research and only as the method in the research. However, I'm saying that GIA, generative AI, these ChatGPT technologies are worthwhile to explore, because if we don't look at them, well then we can be playing catch up later on with those who are using them And so it's important for good actors to be involved, not just bad actors when it comes to technology, because otherwise, if we don't understand these tools, it can be very difficult to counter any problems which may arise. But at the moment, from my experience, in a recent paper, which is under peer review, there is hesitancy for a lot of journals to accept answers from GAI in the research. There is actually policies in some journals which prohibit the use of consulting these tools in research. So even on a research perspective, we're not there yet of being able to reference these tools effectively, even though, say, for example, at my university, at Griffith University, it is possible to reference in other genres. I say it could be in business or some other area. It is possible to use OpenAI as a reference. However, in suicide research and prevention, this is a problem and a challenge which has not yet been addressed effectively and is up for discussion.
Look, I see several questions for you, but one is triggering another intervention from me. An anonymous attendee says that there were numerous reports of artificial intelligence making up information when it does not know the answer. How could we overcome the potential risk of artificial intelligence suggesting potentially harmful advices or providing wrong information? I want to add to that maybe a couple of years ago, I had a patient wearing an advice telling him that he was distressed. And then it was connected to an app that says, if you reach that level, go to the GP. And the GP, unfortunately, was not answering. Then he said, then go to the psychiatrist. But the psychiatrist gave him an appointment in 20 days. So the person became even more distressed. And so this is a potential side of harmful effect. So the real world is still very different from the artificial world where there could be solution at a glimpse. Your answer.
Yeah, on the first part of the question, we talked about AI hallucinations, which is where there's a different response from the AI than would be expected by the modeling. So it is possible for AI to have like incorrect answer or inappropriate. It could be, in fact, harmful. And I think that's what I was trying to allude to before about that Belgian example. The widow complained about perhaps there had been suggestions by the AI for her husband to suicide. And that opened up a legal battle. And it obviously is very much of concern because in my previous answer, I talked about even the creators of this technology have expressed concerns about its capacity for change, good or bad, and the need for regulation. However, if you regulate something that isn't yet well understood, it's perhaps in the too hard basket for a lot of people, and it starts becoming on the list of other battles, such as parents being concerned about their teenagers social media use or digital use in general in terms of excessive screen time. There's a whole range of other issues which came to me after our paper, the impact of YouTube on mental health and loneliness. Diego, our paper provoked a lot of media interest, and I was surprised. As you said, like we've done the digital mental health research over this last few years. We looked at the effectiveness of these platforms. We found very few examples where there had been conclusive evidence that through, say, a randomized controlled trial, that there is tested platforms which practitioners and users alike, patients alike, can trust. So it's a key word is about this trust and then transparency. And we are really looking in not just artificial intelligence about that, but even like more known areas of technology. And it seems the battles are being, you know, the battlefront is more on social media at this time. And as I said, that media attention, it came to me from all different directions. I had students from Griffith interviewing me about excessive screen time problems, and they did a documentary from a journalist perspective. And they interviewed some other students who were addicted to their phone. Instead of doing their study, they're addicted to looking at YouTube or TikTok. They're on Facebook and they can't stop scrolling. And some people have called this doom scrolling. Okay, so there are just so many different can of worms that got opened from looking into digital uses and the mental health effects. And then, of course, we look at the most vulnerable people, like in terms of our preventive intervention. So there has been, you know, more focus on perhaps some of those areas in social media. However, I looked at AI as a next interest because, well, that was a buzzword last year, less so this year, but it's still relevant and it's not going away. If anything, it's just getting more powerful, and the forecasts like for the future are unbelievable. If they can only be true about economies, some going ahead because of AI, others being left behind, and so it becomes part of our institutional system and our academia, our governments, our societies, and this push towards using technologies, but at the same time, some concerns about, you know, whether they overtake our capacity for doing our jobs, even from a researcher perspective. There would be some researchers who want to stick to the same old methods, as Diego introduced at the very beginning. This conference is about innovation. So how do we look at those other keywords about intuition to understand about the uses of technology? So the next part of the question was what is called digital phenotyping. And it refers to that part of the question where Diego talked about the watch, giving an alarm about, you know, the pulse is up or something like that. It's like a Fitbit or a Apple Watch, something like that, that can tell about the heartbeat or the stress level of a person. Even for an athlete, that's very important. And so the digital phenotyping studies, was some areas of many areas that we looked into, evaluating and researching about digital mental health. And there were some studies that had looked into it as being potentially useful in schizophrenic populations. For example, yeah, it could be used as a biomarker, in other words, or like some kind of bio trigger that, yeah, as sends out an alarm, or at least gives a warning for those people who might be alone or isolated to become aware of the elevated levels of distress or even just stress, to the point where they could make a decision like for treatment, or if there's incapacity in that situation, or there could also be an alert sent to others. Okay, so that in a clinical sense has been explored a lot more in depth, and there are a number of studies in JMIR, mental health, from authors such as John Turrell. They've in Harvard and that part of America, that they had a lot of interest in that a few years ago. I haven't so much followed up with those studies, but going back to the original question about AI, yes, there is a buzz, perhaps a hype around the potential of these tools. And as I briefed upon in the presentation, there's these challenges. However, I didn't give like a whole lot of discussion within the presentation because I didn't give a whole lot of discussion there because I feel there's so many different tangents that you can go on. I need to be careful not to generalize or to get too excited, and then start getting the naysayers saying it's just hype. I would rather provide a balanced perspective, and perhaps you could say I'm sitting on the fence and saying, well, it can't even be used for research yet. However, for the keen researcher who's interested in these tools, it's best to be transparent about its capabilities. It can be very useful to get a lot of information quickly, especially if you're changing topics all the time, which is something that I do because I'm able to change my interests every 3 months, every 6 months. I'm looking in a different tangent of digital mental health. There could be 12 key areas which I've reviewed in the past, and I've preferred to just be a generalist without getting sucked too much into these rabbit holes, such as social media and the mental health impacts. I would prefer to just provoke discussion about the fact that younger generations will not be able to produce studies such as the GBD from 2016 with evaluation from experts such as Diego and colleagues in 10 or 20 years' time with the same level of cooperation. Therefore, we have to look at how to bring forward the next generation of students who are already hesitant to do PhD studies these days because, well, for example, in Australia, it's well known that the stipends or scholarships haven't risen all that much in terms of inflation and the cost of living today. So a lot of people also turning away like towards trades or that kind of work. It's important the governments realize about the need for innovation. However, they don't have a very well qualified agenda which incorporates working through the opportunities and the challenges now so that the economic benefits and the socio-cultural realizations can be realized in 5 to 10 years time. There's a lot of people who are happy to say that there would be 400% increases in productivity, but they don't show us how we will get there. And in fact, most people are snowballed and often find it cumbersome, like to deal with so many technologies. How do we simplify it? How do we make them usable? How do we make sure that they're, first of all, ethical, safe, and effective? So Yeah, unfortunately, that's where we need to bring in new projects which are totally left field, because it is the future, which is coming ever closer to us now.
David Kerr asks, these technologies are moving much faster than typical funding, research, and publication cycles move. For example, I'm preparing to resubmit a grant proposal that I began before ChatGPT even existed. What new research and funding models are needed so that scientists can contribute and evaluate progress in this area in a timely manner? That's the question for you, which is quite tough. Or you should unmute.
Yeah. Who is the name? Can you say the name of the question?
David Kerr.
Okay, so
David Kerr.
David Kerr. Okay. These technologies are moving very fast, yes. And then, as I said before, about this difficulty in getting the whole funding cycle like to catch up, or even to address these technologies. That's right. So therefore, the research and publication cycles move. Yes. So like, there's that issue. Yeah, and he's submitting a grant proposal, resubmitting it. And now that ChatGPT exists, since he first started working on the grant proposal, things have changed, of course, and how we can use this tool, or how it can be used in the study. What new research and funding models are needed so that scientists can contribute to and evaluate progress in this area in a timely manner? Oh, I'm not the best person to ask about that one, because to be honest, that's the problem. Is if you want to work in these such new areas, you're taking a risk, which it's difficult to attract funding from the usual suspects, because yeah, they're looking for empirical evidence research, and we're merging theoretical concepts with only little empirical research, or none in the case of GAI and suicide research. So it's a case of, as I said before, the technology is ahead. So they have protocols, or they have prototypes, and they have apps, and they want you to evaluate them like from your suicide research perspective. However, it's very difficult to collaborate with technology developers, because their mindset and their strategies and their techniques are so different. So that's why I'm saying the hybrid researcher, the human artificial intelligence model, it is essentially, what I'm saying is, it's someone who's perhaps not as experienced as others, but somewhat at an intermediate level or an experienced level, who's learned the traditional systematic review techniques, who understands about mixed method studies, has conducted both types. There needs to be, the system needs to be worked with. It can't be revolutionized because of AI. So that's the problem, is how to collaborate between the technological people and the very scientific people. I would say I'm a hybrid version, in that I can understand both somewhat, Yeah. However, like it's like sometimes we're speaking English or this the same language, but there's languages within the language, and technology can overcome that somewhat. But my experience is you have to be prepared to start like almost like a startup. That's the problem. It's like you need, and it probably it needs more attention in this area to show rather than approaching this with a startup model, which is more of a technology speak. That yeah, it comes more from um, the the science understanding the need to marry with technology and to have like hybrid methods. So one of our first papers, yeah, was about the hybrid model of care, and then that's basically it. Is like it's mixing face to face with digital methods in digital mental health care or suicide prevention, and this could be from telehealth through to using the self-guided apps or there being an assistive tools to take some load off psychologists and psychiatrists. I think we need to be thankful for the amount of studies there are already. However, when I sift through them in a scoping review, yeah, and I'm finding the same feedback as an editor at the moment. Is, for example, there's a team in Sydney, the Black Dog Institute. They're very well known in Australia, and I believe their research is known for taking some technological approaches. But same with some other centres such as Origin Youth Health in Melbourne, or Macquarie University in Western Sydney. In Queensland, the Griffith University acknowledged the want to increase, say, social media impacts of mental health. That was one area that the university saw as a future direction. However, as I said, it's just one tangent. They're kind of behind the eight ball a bit. Is that like you need to go back in the literature, which Diego and I have been doing and co-authoring these last few years, and need to first understand about what happened during COVID, like with that change on a global scale of people using digital mental health tools out of necessity in terms of accessibility and the crises which were evolving at the time, and as predicted have actually become even more increased because of a multitude of issues such as financial crises which were predicted to occur as a result of those pandemic times, as well as aging populations, going back to youth culture, rising number of youth in third world countries or developed countries, and the difficulties in understanding those statistics and gaining a better idea about estimates in general, such as the GBD study, the Global Burden of Disease study. Is it possible for the future type of estimates to incorporate some kind of AI in that research to take a risk? I don't know, because that's what's above me in terms of how the system works, and that's why I choose my research on a volunteer basis, and that's what pioneering requires.
Luke, there are many questions, but I have neglected my co-chair, Vita. Do you want to intervene and run the other questions until the end of this presentation?
Yeah, we have a few minutes left, so definitely I can jump in that. Thank you, Luke, for so far. I think we have one question that refers to another continent, which is in Africa. So maybe we want to jump there. Jean-Claude Cambolo is asking, artificial intelligence still remains a very complex problem in Africa in the face of suicide prevention. It's probably the question maybe out of the box, but what would you say? How should we go about it in the first place, given this delay?
Well, I think we go back to the last answer a little bit. Like, as I said, there's a need in developing countries for more accessible but safe and effective tools. Okay, so AI becomes a part of that equation, of course. However, yeah, we're well aware that it's difficult to address these issues if there isn't like more accurate estimates coming from studies, and that was what I had noted in the study which I used as a case, the suicide in men by age and location. So I had looked at a target group because, of course, we know that men are 1.5 up to even 10 times more likely to die by suicide than women, although women are more likely to have psychiatric disorders. It's mostly because it's underreported in men and it's complex. So to get back to regional evaluation, if you look at, say, what I said in like Eastern European countries or Russia being quite high, but then you look at Africa and the Northern African countries, the sub-Saharan countries being very low in terms of population estimates for suicide. It could be improved, you know, on that kind of level, is to have more accurate assessments, you know, in future global burden of disease studies, which then highlights the need or the interest for these tools to be served, you know, for underserved or unserved populations. That's the key idea, is that we're looking at vulnerable populations as a key area of interest. And looking at men as a broad area, it's only as a starting point, really. A lot of our research is interested in young youth studies, but also Diego's interested in older men as being particularly vulnerable. So I've tried to address like key areas without being able to answer all of them. I'm trying to establish something to show its potential, but also those key limitations that I discussed about, you know, the potential for bias or privacy issues, the need for consent in the way that data is collected. And these are important areas, rather than rushing into research and taking data just because there's data available. It's important for it to be set up responsibly. And that's the key word, is responsible AI. It, I think, is in synchronicity with the whole concept which I discussed today, which is human artificial intelligence.
Great, thank you, Luke. I think just last words that you have said resonate with the other questions that are there. So, you know, where does the artificial intelligence get the data? How accurate it is? How does it represent the minorities in this way? So maybe just the last question that I would like to ask is, because a lot of these questions actually refer to the ways that, what do you think are the real ways that artificial intelligence can help in suicidal patients? So, because there are questions about, you know, how therapeutical can it be? Can it have this insight? Can it see more than a therapist? So, how critical it can be in maneuvering all the data that artificial intelligence actually gathers?
Oh, I think back to these actual robots that some people may have seen, and they've been trained to be empathetic or like even like superior, like to the human empathy levels in some cases. Okay, so like they can be very supportive and have the right words to say, very positive. And from what I found is that AI, if it's used with the right intent, it can be perceived as potentially quite positive. And if people can see something rather than nothing, like when they're looking at a computer screen, I think that helps, even if it's a digital image of a therapist. And that's where I was first excited about VR or something like that, or even like being able to take the image of a person with their consent, and then to, have a chat with that person. They could be a leading psychiatrist or someone like that. However, it's actual an AI version. So like there's a lot of ethical issues around that, but I think there's some perpetuity. And as I said, some legacy issues there, which are quite exciting. And if developed appropriately, could be quite exciting for people.
Thank you. I think we have kind of tried to summarize from different questions the main message, so to say. So Diego, maybe back to you to close this session.
It has been an interesting presentation, and essentially is a very interesting topic. We feel a bit anxious and also a bit disquiet about the possible developments in this area. We fear not to be able to control them, and we feel that even we are unable to exploit them in full, because this is the major concern that we have now. For example, we can start using artificial intelligence to counteract loneliness, for example, but we need to teach people how to use it. And this is a main obstacle, because people may know that there is artificial intelligence, but then not being able to use it. I'm trying, for example, with a group of older adults at this point in time, but I'm failing in the sense that people are not able to follow instructions. I'm not able to connect at the same time. I'm not able to hear properly. And so a number of questions are out there that need to be solved. Anyway, nevertheless, I'm not that discouraged, and will continue in this area to try to invest. Suicide is even more complex, clearly, than loneliness, and suicide is possibly many times preceded by complete loneliness of the people. But I believe that the help coming from artificial intelligence can be substantial and meaningful. I believe we probably have to wait a couple of years or so to have clearer views on this topic. But so far it is extremely important to be updated on this area. And thank you again for being with us from far away. You are approximately 17,000 kilometers away, and in a nice place. It's raining and gray here, so you are blessed by a totally different climate. Anyway, thank you so much. It has been particularly nice and close to my heart to see you, Liu. And we have a pause for approximately 25 minutes from now before entering into discussion with Nina. Thank you, Luke. Thank you again.
Thank you, Diego. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Ciao.